What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Bees coming at you with another old school RuneScape guide. Today is going to be a quick banger looking at Verzik, who is the boss for Theater of Blood. I'm not going to cover gear or anything like that because I covered that in my other video, which is the rooms of Theater of Blood and how to get started with Theater of Blood. This is solely going to look at Verzik and the mechanics involved with her. One quick thing before you enter Verzik's room is do not forget to pick up the Dawnbringer staff, which is in the skeleton in the room previous. When you do enter the room, it is not a room that starts automatically. You have to physically start the room, so don't be scared to go in before your team, and then you can take your time to get your tiles marked and all that jazz. Verzik has 3 phases, 1, 2, and 3, and if you're using a client that has plugins for tile markings like RuneLite, then you should definitely mark these tiles before you even start the boss. On your screen, you can see the tiles I have. The green ones are going to be for phase 1, the red ones in the middle that make a little square are for phase 2, and then the southern red one is for phase 3, but don't worry about that one right now because that's kind of for future reference, but just mark it anyways. Make sure to pay special attention that the tiles at the top, the 2 green ones, are marked inside the pillars and not just next to them, and I'll get back to that in a little bit. But for now, just pause the video and mark those tiles because I'm going to jump into phase 1 from here. So the first thing you're going to do when you're learning Verzik is get in the room, mark your tiles, but then you're going to actually drop your brews and restores, not all of them, but enough that if you do die, your teammates will have some to pick up so they can try and secure the kill. The places you don't want to drop them is on marked tiles or next to pillars, because then someone might accidentally click them and it could really hurt them more than help them. So I like to drop them 1 tile away from where I'm going to stand for P2, which will probably make more sense later in the video. For phase 1, Verzik is in the wall and immobile, and she will shoot mage attacks at you, but if you are behind the pillar, when she attacks them, they will hit the pillars instead of you. So make sure you do have Prey Mage on this whole time so that if you do mess up, you don't get 1 hit. The exact thing you'll be doing kind of depends on where you're at in the orb order, and the orb order is what you see on the left side of the screen. You see the red orb, so wherever your name is, it start from the top as 1 and the bottom is 4. Basically what's going to happen is whoever starts with it is going to use 2 specials of the Dawnbringer staff, drop it, the second person is going to use their 2 specials, you're all going to get behind the pillar, and then from there it's just 2 attacks behind the pillar, 2 attacks behind the pillar, using the staff special when your turn comes up. The important thing to remember is that the first round when you start it, you're going to be able to get in 3 scythe hits or 4 whip or blade hits, and from then on out you're only going to get 2 hits between each of her attacks. The other important thing is you need to watch the pillars because they will take damage, and when they get to 0 they will collapse and do massive damage to anything around them. So when they're about to fall, you need to make sure you transition over to the next pillar where you can then continue damaging Verzik between her attacks. Here's a quick example of why you mark inside the towers and not next to them, and it's because if someone drops the staff and then you click on the staff and then someone else picks up the staff, your character will stop moving and it'll be stuck outside the pillar so Verzik can hit you. But if you click inside the pillar, it will automatically take you to the spot you need to be without worrying about getting your motion stopped. So when you are doing Verzik, you should have your sound on, but some of these clips are going to be muted because I was dumb when I recorded them and recorded some voice comms which are very distracting. But going forward, make sure you do have your sound on. If you're the one to start, I like to take a step back, equip the staff, click on my spec bar, put on Prey Mage when everyone else has their Prey Mage on, indicating that they are also ready. You step back under them, and then you click the boss, and you'll do space 1 to start it, and then immediately use your special, use your second special, equip your weapon, shift click drop, get in your next 2 attacks, and then get behind the pillar. The visual cue for attacking Verzik is when she opens her legs, you're good to go attack her. There's 3 ways you can take damage in this room, and the first one is if you leave too early like I do in this clip. The second one is if you stay too long and are too slow to get back behind the pillar. And the third one, which gets most beginners, is when the pillar falls, it can do massive damage. So as long as you avoid those 3 things, you're going to be golden in P1. A few tips and tricks to help you ease the transition in your first one is that if you are slow, don't worry about getting 2 hits in, just get 1 and then get back behind the pillar. On the second round of Dawnbringer dropping and picking up and using the special, you're only going to use 1. So don't worry about getting 2 specials in, make sure you get that 1 in, and then you can get another basic attack and drop it. If the pillars falling scare you, you can just leave and transition over before it falls, like my friend does in this clip. The last tip for P1 is if you have the Dawnbringer staff and you're with a bunch of other beginners when the pillars are getting low, just hang on to it and drop it at the second pillar so that everyone is safe and comfortable and focused on staying alive rather than worrying about the staff on the ground. Make sure you watch her health because when she gets to 0, she'll transition to phase 2, which is all the pillars collapsing, and if you are next to them, you're going to take massive damage and potentially die. The tiles I had you marked, there is one that will be on the screen that is the bottom right. That is a safe spot from her attacks and the pillars, so if you're new and things are getting weird, just go stand there and you'll be safe. But otherwise, just click to the middle of the room and get away from the pillars. The last thing is pillar 3 and the one directly across from that. If you do make it to those, like if you don't kill the boss in time and you pillars 1 and 2 have both dropped, you're gonna actually have to use your trident or whatever your mage weapon is and mage her from back there. But ideally you work up to killing her before pillar 2 even falls. Phase 2 is where sound becomes really important because you can use a high-pitched screech that she makes as your indicator for when to click. Make sure that when you do attack her, you step immediately back and do your V-walk where you're kind of moving between 4 squares. And remember that unless you're Venezuelan on 416, you are more useful to your team alive than dead in a cage viewing from the side. So if you do get out of sync and out of rhythm, just take a step to the side and just move in a kind of a 3x3 square until you get in your rhythm, and then step back in and start doing more damage. This phase has a lot of opportunities for you to get stacked out, and it really punishes beginners as you're learning because there's kind of some things that seem random but they're actually within your control. And the 2 main things that will kill you is the lightning zapper that comes out, and basically how that works is it'll bounce between 4 people, and if it hits that 4th person it'll do upwards of 56 damage. But if you bounce it through Verzik, it'll just completely nullify it, which is why you stand 2 people on each side, and also why when I had you mark those tiles you see X's on what would be the corner of Verzik, because if you are standing out there you can actually shoot the zapper around to your teammates, which you don't want to do. So you want to stick to those tiles you had marked or the one in between them. It also will do a ton of damage if you're too far away for it to bounce to someone. So if that comes out and you're off near the wall, you'll be too far away from your team and you'll just take a massive hit splat. The other thing that kills people is the Exploding Nylos / Purple Crab special, and so she'll launch a purple crab at you that you have to kill with poison in order to get rid of it, while there's other Nylos that are coming to you and will explode once they get within 3 tiles of you. Focus on avoiding damage from the Exploding Nylos and then deal with the purple crab, but remember to keep moving because Verzik is still going to be using her basic auto attacks. And on top of this, you don't want to get too far away because if you get too far away and the lightning comes out, you're going to take a massive damage there too. Once the purple crab has a green cloud come above it, that shows that you poisoned it properly and it'll then die so you can get back on the boss. The V-Walk is much easier with a 4-tick weapon like a blade and a whip versus a scythe. Because a scythe is a 5-tick weapon and Verzik attacks on 4 ticks, you actually have to skip a attack, and it gets kind of weird when you're doing the V-Walk. And even though I'm comfortable and I think I'm decent at TOB, if I do the V-Walk with the scythe, I sometimes end up doing like 2 hits instead of the optimal 3. And that's just something you'll have to kind of figure out what works best for you if you are learning with the scythe. For Exploding Nylos, you don't want to run straight through them because they will trigger when you get within 3 tiles of them and then explode right when you get on top of them. So I find it best to either take a diagonal route or try and loop around them, but that's just something you're going to have to get comfortable with, and you'll kind of figure out what works best for you through trial and error. And keep in mind that they do pick an initial target, but they can switch. So identify if one's coming at you, but don't get complacent because they might randomly switch and come at you even if you think they're going towards someone else. However, my biggest piece of advice with Exploding Nylos is when you see the purple crab, click a little bit away from the boss, because I died a lot when I was learning because the purple crab has an obnoxiously large click block, and you can sometimes try and click away from the Nylos that are coming at you, but accidentally click on the purple crab and get pushed under Verzik, which then bops you out and makes you unable to move, and you just get stacked out right on the spot. Once Verzik hits 35% health, she's going to start a cycle of spawning red crabs that will heal her after a certain amount of time. And so what's going to happen is you're going to pray mage, but still make sure that you're moving around because you can get bopped and you can also get hit by her normal range projectiles, and this time you're not praying against them, so they freaking hurt. But what you're going to do is when she spawns the crabs, don't hit her, because if you hit her, you will heal her, but instead you're going to hit each red crab 2 to 3 times and then get back in cycle and start hitting her again. If you're uncomfortable in the cycle and you're with someone that knows how to do damage to Verzik without getting bopped and take a ton of damage, you can sit back and just try and kill the red crab on your side, and also just be thankful that these are not aggressive to you. And once she hits 35%, she is done spawning the Exploding Nylos and purple crabs, so you no longer have to worry about those. If you do not already have your diaper on when phase 3 hits, make sure you get it when you're learning, because there's a high likelihood you're going to shit your pants, but I'm hoping this guide will maybe limit that, but we'll see. Verzik is going to choose one person to be the tank, and as the tank, you're not going to be able to get optimal DPS, so don't worry about that. Worry more about preventing your teammates from getting meleeed. And so the way Verzik works in P3 is she can either melee, mage, or range you, and she will melee you if you are next to her when it is her turn to attack. Otherwise, she will just use range and mage, which your teammates can react to and pray against. Green is range, blue is mage. In order to prevent her from meleeing us, we do a 1-to-1 method when we're learning, and so what you're going to do is you're either going to hit her, run under her, when she attacks, you hit her again and then run back under her, or you can hit her, run away, when she does a range or mage attack, you can hit her and then run away again. When you watch streamers or more advanced guides, you're going to see them do a 1-tick method, and that's to optimize their DPS. When you're learning, do not fucking try and do this. Verzik rotates between 4 specials during phase 3, and it goes special, 4 to 5 basic attacks, and then special, and it keeps going like this until she's dead. The first one is Exploding Nylos, and that is where she spawns some Exploding Nylos that will then target you and try and explode just like in P2. However, you can just freeze these and ignore them. You can chuck a barrage with your full void melee on, and you usually will land it. For web phase, she'll go to the middle, become untargetable for a second while she transfers there, and then she'll start shooting webs around. Once she starts shooting webs around, all you're going to do is run around her in a circle around the outside, shoot her with your trident or whatever long range weapon you have, and keep moving. If you or your teammate gets stuck by a web, you're going to take heavy damage. You can free them, but if you're with learners, they're not going to free you, so just eat up as much as you can. Then her next special is going to be yellow pads, where she will become untargetable and a bunch of yellow pads will spawn across the room. You need to go stand on one because she'll shoot an orb that does a bunch of damage to you if you're not on the pad to protect you. Only one person can be on each pad at the same time, and it's first come first serve. If someone else is there, you need to find your own. The other one is green ball, where she will launch a ball that deals 76 damage at someone. You can bounce it to 4 people to nullify it, but it is super hard to do that, especially when you're learning, and it requires coordination. So what you should do is on yellow pads, while she's untargetable and the orb is coming at you, brew up to over your max health, restore up, and that way you have full HP when the green ball starts to come at you in the next special. At 20%, purple tornado spawn, and she'll start to attack every 5 ticks versus her every 7 ticks she had been doing. Each person gets their own tornado, so you need to recognize yours and then stay away from it. The best way to stay away from it is by doing like a figure 8 or infinity motion. Hit her, run around, loop around, and keep the tornado on your backside while you kind of do hit and runs on her still, because you still need to stay away from melee distance because you don't want to get meleeed. And that is extra important when you're learning because the tank is more prone to getting you meleeed during this 20% phase. The other thing that is still going to be happening is the specials, and so that's when things can get chaotic. So when tornadoes do spawn, this is what you have been saving your specials for since you used your specials on the Dawnbringer. You want to dump every special ability you have and try and burst her down as fast as possible. If you're not comfortable getting in and hitting her with a melee weapon during tornadoes, equip your long range weapon and just run around her like you did in web phase, because it is much more beneficial to your team that you don't heal her than how much damage you do. Always prioritize avoiding the tornadoes, but if you're with a team of 4 learners, you need to make sure you're still putting out damage, because that's what ties up a lot of learner team, is they're all just avoiding the tornado and they're not doing damage, and then all of a sudden the green balls start stacking up or her damage starts stacking up and you all just die eventually, and she never got off 20% HP because no one hit her. The only special that gets a little tricky is the yellow pad. That's because you need to keep moving to avoid the tornado, but the whole point of the yellow pad is that you stand still on it. So you need to kind of stay 10 tiles away and then run to it once she launches the projectile. But this is really hectic and hard to learn, so the best thing to do is to get to full HP and just take the yellow pad damage and do not let the tornado hit you. That's all I've got for my Verzik guide, so thank you for watching and sticking it out. I hope it helps someone out there. I hope it gives you a little confidence to maybe get your first kill count or get your foot in the door. I'm sure there's some information I'm forgetting, but this is enough information that I wish I had as a beginner, and luckily I had some really helpful people that helped me along the way. So find some friends, team up, go plank. That's the best way to learn. Videos can only get you so far. Eventually you have to go try it yourself, and hopefully I'll see you in 416 or somewhere when we can run some together. But until then, goodbye.